Hi, this is Leora Lanz, and you're listening to Marketing Mindset Lessons from Hospitality, the podcast where I speak with some of my amazing friends throughout the global landscape of hospitality and marketing. We will share best practices that you can use in your business, whether it's in traditional hospitality or not, whether you are an emerging leader in the industry, or seasoned and wanting to stay fresh and always learning. If you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, you need a marketing mindset. Whether you're marketing a business or yourself, we all need a marketing mindset. We know you're busy, but take a listen and figure out how you can apply this fresh thinking to your world, both professional and personal. Let's all think like a marketer. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another conversation on the Marketing Mindset Podcast, the podcast named for the books of the same name that I authored in 2025 and 2026 about lessons from hospitality, how we should all think like a marketer, how everyone should have a marketing mindset, and how every business should have hospitality. Today's conversation is going to be a lot of fun because we're talking about destination marketing, something that's really important to me because personally, I began my career at a CVB, a Convention and Visitors Bureau. Fortunately, it was in the city of Boston, one of the cities I love so much. To be able to market that city as a destination for conventions, for leisure, for business was one of the biggest thrills of my life. And I loved that experience and learning about tourism and economic development and how to market a destination and balance the number of tourists. That's a whole other conversation and really important in the scheme of hospitality. So today we're going to welcome my friend, Karyl Leigh Barnes. And we've known each other a very, very long time. And that's why I trust her to share this information. So let me share a little bit about Karyl Leigh, her work, and then we're going to bring her in to chat about destination marketing. Karyl Leigh Barnes is a certified destination management executive. She brings more than 30 years of hands-on experience in tourism marketing. She's led destination campaigns on every continent except Antarctica. And although she's still holding out hope, but that's another conversation about travel to Antarctica, whether we should do it or not do it. But I digress for a moment. Karyl Leigh is president of Development Counselors International, DCI. It's a tourism practice. She's been there since 2018 in this role as president. She's now co-CEO of the agency. She's recognized for combining effective marketing communications with sustainable tourism practices to help destinations and hospitality businesses thrive. If you're interested, the website is aboutdci.com, and it is my pleasure to have this conversation with my friend, Karyl Leigh Barnes.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, Leora.
Hey, Karyl Leigh, how are you? This is so great to have this talk. And boy, with 2026 being a year of the 250th of the United States, the anniversary of this country, FIFA World Cup coming here, destinations, United States, the whole concept of tourism is even the concept of over-tourism. CBS Sunday Mornings just did a piece on over-tourism in certain places. So tourism, and now we're hitting the summer months when Americans have that school break with their families and can travel. So this is sort of a timely conversation, but I'd love for you to explain, what does DCI do exactly? And why should anybody in hospitality actually pay attention? What is DCI?
So DCI, which stands for Development Counselors International, was founded on the basis that communities are job creators all around the globe. So within a community, there are jobs in hospitality and tourism, which are important for local community members. And DCI focuses on promoting those communities as great places to work, to live, and of course, because I had our tourism practice, to travel. And within each and every community, there are individual businesses. And in the hospitality space, that includes hotels, both big brand hotels as well as independently owned and operated hotels, right, restaurants, tourism attractions. And the reality is most of the jobs and most of the experiences that are within a destination are mom and pop businesses. So
Yes.
there are a lot of small businesses that we are responsible for helping to shed light on in a community in order to improve quality of life. And that's DCI's entire focus, making places better places to live and correspondingly better places to work and to travel.
Fantastic. And that's really important because when we travel, we have to remember there are people who live in these places and who work in these places. And so we have a responsibility as travelers to ensure that people who live and work in a destination also have a fabulous experience. We cannot take it over as a tourist. So you're flipping that narrative. We're focusing on those communities.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to hear, you started your career at a CVB. I also started my career working with the tourism office. And one of the major things that has changed over the last 30 years is we kind of moved on this transition from CVB to destination organization. And
Right.
yes, we're responsible for marketing, but as a destination organization, you're also responsible for helping to build community pride, for helping
Hmm.
to make a place a great place, not just for tourism investment, but for broader industry investment into a community. It is an important evolution because when we talk about over tourism, the role of a destination organization now is to make sure that we're responsible stewards of what a community has to offer. So it's been a big
Okay.
change.
Yes, and I think that's fantastic. I know even in Boston, CVB several years ago was changed. It's no
Mhm.
longer called the Greater Boston CVB. It's actually called Meet
Meet Boston.
Boston, which
Yes.
I think is a brilliant name for come meet us. Um, is the acronym DMO? Could you define that acronym and is that still in use?
It still is in use. Now, that acronym stands for Destination Marketing Organization, and that is certainly the core of what all of these destination organizations do.
Okay.
However, there's been a 10-year evolution. Many DMOs are now slowly transitioning into what's called a destination management organization because they're trying to
Mm,
manage the community in a way that yes, brings visibility, but also helps to think in advance. Where does that community need to go? What sort of infrastructure needs to be put in place to help bring the community along that path to where the future of success lies? And that often means working with government organizations, working with economic development organizations. It extends now beyond marketing, and it's an exciting place to be, especially for people that are in the hospitality space, because
right.
now, if they're not a big business like a big corporation, they actually have advocates at the table within their community to advocate for them, to advocate for mom and pops, to advocate for legislation that helps advance their individual businesses, which was really hard to do a decade ago when they didn't have representation at those big thought tables. And now DMOs are bringing that opportunity to small businesses.
Terrific. So, what recommendations do you have for businesses to work through a destination management organization to help market themselves and introduce themselves to people who come to live, work, or visit in that area, in that community?
I would say similar to how any successful relationship is, there has to be continuity to build trust. I didn't just walk up to you and say, "Hey, I want to be a part of your podcast," right? We have a 30 some year
Right.
relationship where we've built trust and we've had engaging conversations previously. It works the same way
Yep.
in destinations. There are attractions, hotels, restaurants in every community, but the ones that benefit most from the destination organization is the one that are proactive in establishing relationships. And that doesn't just mean a relationship between, the GM, the powerful person in a hotel, and the CEO of a destination organization. It's at every level. It means if you're a hotel salesperson, you're building a relationship with the salespeople at the destination organization so that when they're on a trade show floor, after having just spoken with you, your key messages are what's coming out in their conversation with meeting planners. Or it means connecting your social media expert, even if you outsource that for your restaurant. It's connecting that social media person with the social media team at the destination organization so that when they're creating real-time content, they're thinking about your restaurant, they're thinking
Right.
about your chef, they're thinking about anything that's creative that's coming out of your organization. So I'd say building trust is paramount in making sure that at a regular cadence of some sort, whether that's a monthly email and a quick phone call every quarter, you're continuing that relationship and being kept top of mind.
Okay, great. So it sounds as if we're a business in a destination, we need to connect as businesses with that DMO, their staff, their leaders, their participants, frequent updates. What kind of updates? What is it that I should be sharing with a DMO so that when they're going to trade shows globally or when that DMO is speaking to bookers of business, they know what to communicate on my behalf?
It's a great question because there are actually different types of content. Now,
Okay,
there's some hotels and restaurants that have a vision. Maybe it's a restaurant group. It has a vision where it's going to grow in the future. And being ahead of the curve, if you know you've got a hotel in development, you know there's a new restaurant coming out, could be even a year in advance. That information is great for a destination organization to understand for a couple of reasons. One, when they're making a travel guide, they're planning that a year in advance. So even if you have renderings of your property and it hasn't even been built yet, that's helpful information. Their PR team, particularly their media relations team, is also seeding stories a year in advance because we know journalists
right.
are working ahead of time with, trying to understand what they're going to write about, where they're going to cover. And so having that information ahead of time is important. But real-time content is also important. So if you get a new chef or you have a special package promotion that's coming out in your hotel, that type of information is very useful both to digital marketing teams at a destination organization or to their sales staff who's constantly trying to educate meeting planners and the travel trade about why they should consider booking their clients in the location that the destination organization represents. So long-term ahead of time information, but also right to the deadline information is important. And it can be done via email. It can be done via video clips that you might have. It can actually even be a quick text to your day-to-day contact at the destination organization to say, hey, I'm in the property today. Look what's happening. Every sort of engagement you make, just like every sort of engagement you make with a consumer, helps to keep you top of mind for all the staff within the destination organization.
Okay, great. So this is great advice for hospitality businesses. And everyone, according to my book, everyone should be a marketer. So whether you have marketing in your title or not, the business needs to communicate with that destination management organization as another sort of touch point, right? Another agent on our behalf to get our information out there. I want to backtrack for a second, Karyl Leigh. Development Counselors International, who are your clients? Are they the destinations? What are they looking for DCI for help? I want you to share with us sort of the strength of DCI because it's a fabulous organization. And I would love for people who are watching this or listening to us right now to understand, where do you come into the tourism spectrum? How are you representing communities? And I'm sure it's for different goals too. I would imagine these different global destinations also have different goals where they need your support.
So first, thank you for that compliment. We appreciate it. We work hard to deliver for our clients. About 90% of our business is countries, regions, cities, and states. And in the practice I oversee, those are the tourism offices for various types of entities.
Okay.
The overarching goal is to bring visitor arrivals and encourage greater spending for the benefit of locals in the communities that represent. But
Okay.
but the timing of that promotion will vary. So there are countries that we work in, for instance, the country of Thailand. There are
Okay.
certain parts of Thailand that have an over tourism challenge. And so we are brought on to educate consumers as well as the travel trade and meeting planners about where are the under visited regions of Thailand. We still
Okay.
want to bring visitation. There's not a moratorium on visitation and spending in Thailand, but we're trying to educate people. So we encourage them to go to less visited regions so we don't run into that over tourism challenge. And the benefit of that, of course, is that as we guide consumers, as we educate them and we guide them to less visited areas, we're helping to create jobs and improve the quality of life for people in those communities. So
Fantastic.
sometimes it is about guiding people, and then sometimes it is about actually creating demand. So there are small US communities that we work with, for instance, who may have never thought about how do I get visitors to my community? How am I different from my neighbor? My community neighbors around me. So we work with them on actually helping to dive into what their brand is. What is it that they have that's unique? Because every community has something that's unique. And who are the people that will be interested in that community based on what they have? It's guiding the destination to understand what makes them special and who, of all the travelers in the whole wide world, who are the people they should target to help bring visitation and spending to their community.
Amazing. Is there an example maybe of a past smaller US destination that you might be comfortable to share or even just give us a hint? I'm not sure how much of it you're allowed to share in terms of who it was, but can you give us an example? Because that's really fascinating. And I think that's great that these communities have the wherewithal to understand that they have an opportunity for another economic driver into their location.
Absolutely. So it happens in small communities all across the country. One that example that comes to mind is Redding, California. So Redding is a small, I would say, outdoor explorer's paradise, but they are a small community, the gateway to Yosemite National Park.
Ah,
And
okay.
everyone's heard of Yosemite, but very few people really understood what Redding had to offer. And so
Okay.
that was a multi-year process to help them understand their brands, to help position it to predominantly California-based travelers. We weren't trying to California is a huge market. We weren't trying to overshoot and say, people from New York or Florida come to Redding. It really was getting the California audience to understand that staying in Redding was their gateway to Yosemite National Park. And that is one destination where we saw that just by the right positioning and the constant marketing to a very specific audience, because again, their budget's not unlimited and no destination's budget is
Sure.
unlimited, that was the real focus. And we actually watched as visitation grew into Reading because of that very concentrated marketing effort. But that could
Wow.
be repeated, from destinations like Rockford, Illinois, that's outside of a major city like Chicago. Sometimes those smaller cities get overlooked, but they have unique assets and elements that make them unique and good drivers, especially for regional visitation.
Gotcha. I know Revere, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, they had some effort. I don't know if it's continuing at the moment, but to become a great place to live, work, or visit,
Mhm.
even for day trippers, even for students and nature walks and things like that. And that's not necessarily something that most Bostonians would even pay attention to. So I can appreciate these sort of just outside those larger cities saying, hey, we've got stuff here too. It's not going to cost you as much and it's perfect for a day trip escape. And by the way, we're a great place to live and work. I can appreciate that because I've seen that. We did a DMO sort of assignment in one of my classes with the town of Revere, which is how I learned about that. So
We are
that's
definitely
great.
seeing more collaboration with live, work, play
Yeah.
format. Sometimes destinations are playing a leadership role in that. Sometimes they're collaborating with their local governments or their economic development organizations, particularly as it relates to attracting talent, attracting people to live there, because we know that some of the assets that go into tourism, the parks, the recreation, the arts and culture, the dining, make a place a great place to live. And that's where tourism can play a role in saying, we have these assets, whereas the economic development entities come in and say, we have the jobs, which if we have the
Okay.
jobs and the assets, it can be a great place to live and work. And so we're seeing an increase in collaboration between these types of organizations in order to get people to live in communities and take open jobs.
Great. Great. So, what other countries have approached DCI, for example? In the case of Thailand, what an interesting assignment. How do we shift visitation into
Mm.
lesser explored areas so that we either manage or prevent an over tourism situation? What other kinds of tourism challenges have you or DCI experienced in the past with other countries or regions? Because it really is a fascinating topic.
It's a fascinating topic, and I will say one of the experiences that I hold close to my heart was working with the country of Namibia, and that is in Southern Africa. It's just sort of north of South Africa. And one of their challenges was they wanted to create jobs for local people. And one of the things that is sort of a carry on from colonization, unfortunately, is that a lot of
Mm,
the big hospitality providers, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, are not from the continent of Africa,
right,
not from the local country. And so
right.
our particular assignment was to try to help to elevate awareness about locally owned safari experiences in Namibia. And the benefit of those, they had done their own research and found that there are a number of actually women run businesses, safari businesses in Namibia, where they found that when women were placed in leadership roles in those companies, within those safari companies, they were more likely to invest in both healthcare and education for their children when they were the ones that were the moneymakers of the family. And so there were certain properties that actually invested in educating and rising up female leaders. And to me, that was so, as a mom myself, that was so impactful and powerful to understand that our marketing of those particular properties was not only creating jobs for women, but it was helping to educate and nurture the next generation, I
Right.
hope, of future women leaders
Yeah.
within that country. And it was one of those campaigns where, um, we saw a direct impact of our marketing efforts in North America because they were literally adding plane routes to bring North American visitors to Namibia because of the business impact of this marketing work. And to me, that was super meaningful and also a sort of an interesting result of the type of work that we do.
I love that. I want to get back to that in a second. I just want to just digress for for a moment because the work that you just talked about in sub-Saharan Africa is of particular interest for me. I actually was privileged to work with the Tourism Business Council of South Africa for a couple of years, where they were trying to promote the same thing and really how important it is for these hospitality brands coming into a place to work with local folks on the ground so that there was a local sense of engagement and support, and a genuine interest in supporting that local community as opposed to just coming in and taking over. So I completely understand that message. That's true everywhere around the world. I've seen that in South America as well as in sub-Saharan Africa. And interestingly, I'm in touch with a young woman who is progressed in her education. She's from Zimbabwe, where there's a lot of natural parks, safari parks, also women run in her country. And Ivy Mtetwa, this is a shout out to you, because it's been really impressive to watch her and to see development, regionally to come into those nature areas. And Machachi Ramawela, a shout out to you, because your work in sub-Saharan Africa and what you've done all these years to promote women in hospitality and tourism is just really notable and noticeable. So I digress, but you really connected with me on that too, Karyl Leigh. But
I
let's
love
go back to,
stories like that. Yes.
yeah, it really means a lot. And I love supporting these women when I can, even from afar. But airline routes. So tourism, you're only as good as how you can get people into your destination, out of your destination, the roads in your destination, the entire infrastructure. Do you have an example, as you just shared with Namibia? Is there any other example where it sort of really meant a complete infrastructure situation or development to be able to create a destination?
That's a great question. So, especially in this time where airfares are going up and we're seeing challenges with oil prices, both for gas but also for flights, it
Right.
really reinforces the long-term importance of tourism. Yes, your hospitality partners are interested in the here and now, and that is true. They need to fill room nights, they need people through their attractions. But the big role of a destination organization is to look long term. We
Yes.
know we have an issue with oil prices right now, but long term, we have to look at what is route development all about. Airlines are looking at routes upwards of 5 years from now. Where are they going to go while they're managing their load factors and their revenue at this immediate time? And so um, that's where the destination organization can really add community value because they're
Yes.
part of the team that's looking long term. And route development is one of those. I would say short term, they're also, as we're hitting this oil or we're in this oil crisis now, they're also responsible for looking short term. And so you'll see many destination organizations right now leaning into road trips for the summer, whether they're European destinations looking at train travel for the summer or US destinations looking at road trips because they know they have a commitment to their hotels, to their
Right.
restaurants, to their attractions for driving visitation. And I think the benefit for hospitality organizations to be involved with their local DMO is because they know they're getting short term commitments, but also long-term vision. And both are equally important when you think about the long tail of what a destination evolution is all about.
I love that. That was great advice for these hospitality businesses. Do you have anything else that you wanted to share, Karyl Leigh, in terms of educating folks who are watching us or listening to us about the role of a DMO, whether it's a piece of advice for the traveler or a piece of advice for the hospitality business, or even an advice for a destination that may want more help in managing its tourism?
I think my advice is become engaged. It is too late when there's a crisis to start a relationship. And
Yeah.
both for destination organizations and for their partners, at every level of the organization, get to know the people that are doing your job on the other side of the table. If you're a DMO, the folks that are at the attractions doing your role. And if you're at a hospitality business, a hotel or a restaurant, the people in the DMO that are helping to promote you. Again, an established relationship is what can help you through the hard times as well as the good times. And it's never too early to start that relationship, but it can be too late when you're in the thick of a crisis and you're just trying to respond to have that be the first foundational step. So I would say at every stage of your career, know the people you need to know and build that trust. They will grow with you as you continue to grow in your career. And so there is no harm in building that network.
Great advice for everything in life, for that matter,
Everything.
because it takes a village to do just about anything. So, in this case, it takes a community to build the community. And I really
Absolutely.
appreciate that. As someone who's an advocate for tourism and someone who wants to manage tourism around the world, because we don't want over tourism to drive communities out, but we do want people to travel because that's how you learn to love one another, quite honestly. I thank you for what you do. And thank you for supporting my students over the years, for all the wisdom that you've shared upon them for their particular work and the projects we do, but also for keeping me learning. So, Karyl Leigh, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Marketing Mindset Lessons from Hospitality. Marketing Mindset is a production of Think Tank Media and the Hospitality Nexus, the global platform for hospitality education, with resources such as podcasts, articles, and video tutorials. I'm your host, Leora Lanz, and if you want to learn more about how we can work together, visit my LinkedIn at Leora Halpern Lanz. Remember to order a copy of my debut book, the international bestseller, Developing Your Marketing Mindset, Real-World Lessons from Hospitality, which also won the Business Book of 2025 award from the New England Book Festival. And the newest in the series, the companion book, Marketing Mindset in Motion, inspired by hospitality. Everything you need to think like a marketer for your business, your service, or yourself. Connect with meaning through wellness, sustainability, and community to market with meaning and remember the hospitality. Until next time.